Hello, it's John Heaton, and today, to mark the 50th anniversary of the release of this album, which was on Thursday, December the 3rd, 1965 it came out, on the same day as they released We Can Work It Out Day Tripper double A-side single, so 16 top-class tracks came out on that day, so that puts that date, December the 3rd, 65, up there with any other in Beatles history, certainly. Rivals June the 1st, 67, and it rivals November 22nd, 68. So, I've got 3 copies of this album to show you, but I'm going to end up reviewing the UK edition, because that's the definitive one, that's the one the Beatles intended. And I know a lot of you out there maybe are familiar with the US version, which I do own, which is interesting and probably less offensive than some of the other US albums. I'll show it to you, because at least they got the cover right. But the problem with these US albums is, 1, there's only 12 tracks, and 2, they're mucking around with the track listing. So they put 2 tracks from Help on here, which actually work quite well, but they miss out Nowhere Man, they miss out Drive My Car, If I Needed Someone, and What Goes On. So, bit of a mismatch really. So let me show you the French copy, which is slightly faded cover, which is on the Odeon label, blue Odeon label. This was the first copy I picked up. It's not an original 60s pressing, it's late 70s I would say. This is a US, I was told it was a US original. Bought this in Athens the other day actually. And I don't know, you guys tell me if it's an original. On the Capital Rainbow label. This looks in pretty good nick. Haven't actually played it yet. But nice to own an original US Rubber Soul, even though the track listing is mucked up. And then finally, this is my UK one, which is again not an original 60s thing. I think it was late 70s, early 80s maybe. So, first thing to say is what a brilliant cover. This picture is timeless, as is the music inside the album. I think this album is, if you want to get a friend into the Beatles, this is the album that I would lend them, I think. Either this or Abbey Road. Just because it's got such universal appeal and the song quality is just so brilliant, more or less throughout. So it opens with Drive My Car, which is a superb rocker from Paul, although one reads that his original lyrics were not that great and John improved them to make the final version, which is very humorous and just a great band effort. They get a great groove on this track. Paul's piano and John's backing vocals and George's guitar. It's just a great opener. It really is, and probably, you know, in the top 3 album openers of the Beatles' career. This, along with Taxman and Back in the USSR, perhaps, from the White Album. So continues in superb form with John's Norwegian Wood, which features the use of sitar from George Harrison. Interestingly, when you listen to the anthology version of this, the sitar is far more prominent, but for the final release version it's used somewhat sparingly and to better effect, I think. And it's just a great track with a great set of words, and may have been about an affair that John was having, but either way, just brilliant words. Isn't it good? Norwegian Wood. Apparently he may have set fire in this song to the girl's apartment before leaving. So Paul owned up to in a subsequent interview. So You Won't See Me is from Paul, and it's not a brilliant song, but it's very nice and good tune and good backing vocals. yeah, it's up there. It's worthy of it being on this album, but it's not quite classic McCartney. Nowhere Man from John is great three-part harmony from John, Paul and George, and they did this in concert successfully around the time of this album and in the following year. It's a decent track. It's probably not my favourite. It's probably been maybe overplayed a little over the years, but good. Think for yourself from George. George was really coming into his own on this album with two very strong tracks, probably the strongest of his career to date. The two on Help were getting there, but not as good as these two, and great instrumentation from the other members on this track. Paul on fuzz bass, and John and Paul on backing vocals. Brilliant. The word is love. This is probably the earliest example of kind of a message song, sort of, which would lead ultimately to All You Need Is Love. It's just brilliant upbeat song. Great musicianship again. Play the whole album loud actually. Michelle closes side one. Beautiful ballad from Paul, and good contribution from John, because he contributed the bit in the middle about I need you, I need you, I need you, which kind of balances out the slightly sugary verse. So good John and Paul collaboration on this track. I like it, and great backing vocals. Great backing vocals. Some people don't like that track, but I will defend it. Side 2 opens with Ringo's vocal, which you won't find on the US album. This is a Lennon-McCartney-Starkey composition with great backing vocals from John and Paul, and it's a nice sing-along number. Not brilliant, but inoffensive. And then we get the next 3 tracks are just all classics. I mean, Girl from John, brilliant words. She told when she was young that pain would lead to pleasure. Just lines like that all the way through the song, and great amusing backing vocals. Just a brilliant song. Probably in John's top 5 ballads of all time. I'm looking through you. This is just classic McCartney. The US version, interestingly, does have a full start to this track, which is interesting. The UK version doesn't, and the anthology version, early take, is also very interesting because it's less kind of bitter and it's more reflective. But this, by the time he got to the album version, he was this song was probably aimed at Jane Asher, and he was feeling a little bit angrier, and it's a great track. Brilliant. In My Life. Well, again, in John's top 5 ballads of all time. I know this is your favourite, Andy Brooks, and it's probably one of mine as well. It's just brilliant. Brilliant words about all his friends and lovers. Some are dead and some are living. In my life, I've loved them all. Timeless. And Paul actually contributed quite a bit of the melody to this track. Wait is probably not the best track on the album. I think it was a leftover from the Help sessions, resurrected for this album. Decent, good vocals, but not too much as a song. If I Needed Someone is George's best song up to this point. Great jangling guitar, kind of Birds-like, and just brilliant melody, and he would go from strength to strength after this album, starting with this album, and you won't find this track on the US version, by the way. It's just brilliant, good one, George. And then Run for Your Life ends the album. From John, he always hated this song, and the words are a bit cruel about to his girlfriend, catch you with another man, that's the end, little girl. He wasn't proud of this song. George loved it. The fans are kind of divided. It's okay. It's decent. It's chugs along nicely. and it's a decent closer to the album. So all in all, if you were a Beatles fan on December the 3rd, 65, you come home and play that lot, it must have taken some taking in, because it's just such a sublime album, and others took the inspiration from this, which led to the golden mid-60s period of creativity from so many of the top bands of the time. So 10 out of 10 easily, and in my top 3 Beatles albums of all time, probably, although it changes according to the which one you happen to be listening to at the time. Thanks for watching.